right, here we are. Courtney, it's our debut episode.
I'm excited.
I could tell. Welcome to Deducation, the Teachers Talking Terror podcast. I am one of your hosts, Mike.
And I'm the other one, Courtney.
And we are here for just, I don't know, I think, honestly, it's just so many cool reasons. Recently found out that you are also a horror film fan, and I'm a huge horror film fan. We work together. All of this sounds very like we're talking to the listeners, because we are. But once we get through this little spiel, then we'll just kind of talk to each other. Kind of a weird dynamic, of course. I've been teaching for 20 years. This is my 20th year.
Sorry, I cut you off there.
No. I was just going to ask you how long you've been in the classroom.
This is my 5th year.
This is your 5th year. Do we have any, pre-coworker relationship?
Yeah, I think so. 4 years of high school.
Yeah. So, we do teach in the same district, but I was I was your math teacher for 4 years. And I did your senior pictures, and I did your pageant pictures, and as life in a small town leads to. So, yeah, now we get to do this together, which is super exciting because I just don't feel like I go to work.
Yes.
And so I'm friendly with everybody, but outside of work hours, I just go home to my family, and everyone else goes and does their thing. And so it's been 20 years, and I feel like I finally get to connect with somebody outside of school. So it's very exciting. But yeah, I'm a lover of horror, but I've also I grew up with it. I remember Nightmare on Elm Street came out in 1985, and I turned 6 that year. And I remember my mother plopping me down on her lap at 7 years old and making me watch Nightmare on Elm Street. And her reasoning was, I hope I remember the story correctly, when she grew up, my grandpa would watch the Twilight Zone, and he would have her sit and watch it with him so that she would realize that scary doesn't mean real, that, it's all make-believe, and it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to realize that this is there. I think there is a huge jump, though, from your TV show Twilight Zone to Freddy Krueger.
Yes.
Which I'm excited because you have no idea.
I've never seen it. I mean, and I'm saying yes, but the Twilight Zone, the closest I've been to the Twilight Zone is the Tower of Terror in Disney. Right. So I haven't seen that either.
Oh, so this is... It's like education on multiple levels. Before we get too far into whatever our movie is today, the premise that we kind of talked about is we want to build a show around our mutual appreciation of horror movies, but at the same time, and this is I think what separates us from a lot of different podcasts, is it blends a little bit of education podcasts and a little bit of movie review, is that we want to approach these horror films like we were a teacher in this environment. And you have, like you said, this is your 5th year, and it's purely elementary. You've only taught, did you teach anywhere? Did you teach anywhere before where we're at now?
I did a maternity leave in 3rd grade, but then, okay. At Lewistown, I taught 3rd grade for 3 years, and this is my 2nd year in kindergarten, so, right. Yeah, purely elementary.
Yeah, so you're 3rd grade and 2nd grade, whereas I've taught 6 through 12. English, math, I'm teaching technology. I've been around, and so I've got a lot going in the last 20 years, as well as other just side credentials and whatnot. So it'll be interesting for us to have this conversation of what, if this happened in the town we're teaching, if we were teachers in the town or in the environment this is happening, how on earth would we deal with this? Because the movies, whenever they show a school scene, it's always pre-horror. Mm-hmm. They show the characters in their environment, but they never really show the horror. So you'll see a character in the classroom, and the teacher's going whatever. But then 7 people get murdered that night, and then they never go back to school. I want to know, how did that teacher handle that when they come back to school the next day, and they're like, where's Mike? Where's Courtney? Oh, I hear they were murdered in their sleep last night. Oh no, there was a monster that stole them, and it's but I want to know, how would the teacher handle that? And so I think that'll be a fun little exercise for us to use our teacher brains and kind of tiptoe through, even though we kind of joke that it's all going to resort to just we're going to call the grief counselor. We're going to call the grief counselor.
Yes.
But how would we handle this in our classrooms? But the second phase of the deducation would be the fact that as your former teacher, and now of course you've got some experience under your belt, but like you were telling me earlier this week, you enjoy horror films, but you really have seen next to nothing.
Yes.
And so I don't remember why though. What was your rationale behind that?
I did not grow up with it like you did. My dad's not a horror person. My mom and I have watched scary movies together, but I like to sit down with someone and watch it. And Casey's not going to do that with me.
No.
I mean, no. I started up this one and he's like, see you later, I'm out. So the fact that we can sit and talk about it afterwards, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that's good because my wife and I, we watch a lot of stuff together, but we really don't dialogue them out. I mean, she loves watching them with me, and we enjoy that. But again, I don't really get an outlet outside of my other podcasts where we cover different movies and different themes and different genres. But just like horror, no, this is where I enjoy. No, don't get me wrong, I love action, I love comedy. I'll watch a rom-com. I'll watch anything, but this is where I find myself really enjoying my time. I'm now 10 movies in on my quest to watch a horror film a day. I could take the next week off and probably still be all right. So let's get into this debut episode, where I was so excited to share with you one of my, I don't want to call it a favorite, but it does find itself creeping into my recommended to those that have seen a lot. And then there's a second tier of things that they should watch that aren't super bizarre. But we're going to kick off Deducation Week 1, Season 1, debut episode with, I think it's 1983's. Let me look this up. 1983's Sleepaway Camp.
Because to me, that was, I guess as a young adult, I was like, wow, my dad was still in high school.
Yeah, I've got 16 years on you. I was young when this came out. But yeah, this would have been a movie that, if your dad were of that ilk, that this would have been the type of movie in theaters if he chose to go see it. So, all right, so Sleepaway Camp. Help me go back. We'll go back and forth with the plot here. So we've got young Angela and her brother. Beginning of the movie, terrible boating accident. Dad is lost, and we just fast forward. I don't remember how many, but we go from young Angela and her brother to older Angela, teenage Angela. She's 12 or 13.
Yes.
And she's now living with her aunt and her cousin.
And this aunt, I don't know if we're going into character.
Oh yeah. Oh no, there's no rhyme or reason.
As a teacher, I was like, whew, this is the parent that you don't want. I'll just say it. She was overbearing. Yeah. She was a lot. Yeah. In just a short time.
Yeah, she was chewing the scenery for sure. Yeah, that aunt came straight from community theater. Mm-hmm. And you're in a movie now, ma'am. Yes. you don't have to lay it all out there. But yeah, this aunt, you're right. She's she was definitely getting her salary's worth for this one.
She was.
But we get to she's sending Angela and her cousin. I can't think of his name. I watched this a week ago.
I have it written down.
That's great.
Because I liked him.
He was a good kid. Ricky, yeah. Angela and Ricky, she's sending them off to camp Arawak, which you can buy those T-shirts. I'm a big fan of the website TeePublic. Not a sponsor of the show, but TeePublic if you're listening. But yeah, I love T Public, but yeah, as I was watching this with my wife, I did fire it up to see if I could get a Camp Arawak shirt, and you can. They've got all the colors you want, but you could get shirts exactly like Angela and Ricky, and all the like 30-year-old camp.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so they're off to camp, and have you ever been to summer camp?
I have actually, and I was actually a counselor for 3 or 4 years at one as well.
Really? So
yes,
I went to summer camp one time growing up. It was like a week-long camp, and my experience at camp, aside from the murder, was pretty spot on with how this camp ran. The counselor, I also was a camp counselor for a year, for a summer, but my experience, I think, was more because I remember what camp was like. I didn't want to be that type of counselor. Was this anything like your camp you went to?
Yeah, so mine was a church camp, and I went to that starting at age 8 until 15, and then I was a counselor 16, 17.
Wow.
18 and 19. So yeah, but we had fun camp counselors. We would always do the pranks on the guys, the girls would, or
gotcha.
Guys would do. So I wanted to be one of the fun camp counselors as well.
You didn't have like verbally abusive camp counselors?
No.
No, you weren't one of those?
No.
And neither was I, like the totally ripped out, muscle bound, like soft spoken sweet guy camp counselor. And so, yeah, they're at camp, and quite honestly, Angela is kind of the oddball. She doesn't say a word for, like, 80% of the movie. Mm-hmm. And so she's there, and because she's the oddball, Ricky's been there. Ricky had, last summer, he and Judy were hot and heavy. Judy might be my favorite character in the whole movie.
Judy.
You can also buy on TeePublic. You can also buy a Judy shirt.
The Judy shirt,
hot pink with the name Judy across it. You can get that on TeePublic, amongst other places. But yeah,
who Casey and I should be for Halloween this year.
I think you should be Ricky. You should be Ricky and Judy. Be Ricky and Judy. Don't be Angela and Judy. Although Casey could be Angela if you wanted to.
He could.
He could be. But so, yeah, they're at camp, and just a lot of just everybody picking on Angela. Ricky's a good cousin, I thought.
He is.
Really defending her, standing up. I don't think there's a swear word that isn't said in this movie.
No.
Which is another reason why, to me, it was very reminiscent of what camp was like, because it was just like trailer mouth all day long. Like, yeah,
not at mine.
Probably not at church camp. But mine was just like a week-long summer camp, and it was what it was. They had the canoeing and the archery and all the things you're supposed to do at summer camp. But it was also just it wasn't violent, but it was very intimidating for a first-time summer camper. Even though I was probably bigger than everybody at the camp. And so, but then somebody, we find out, starts fighting back, right? So who was the first victim of this? Was it the cook?
Artie, yes.
It was Artie, the disgusting pedophile cook.
Yes.
Like, didn't even hide the pedophilia.
No, nothing.
Bragged about his pedophilia.
Like, the first 5 minutes of the movie, he's like,
yeah,
look at them.
Oh, it was so gross. Watching him get off the bus and like salivating, and it was pretty disgusting. So Artie, you get Angela cornered.
Yes.
How did that? I don't remember how that went.
So she didn't want anything to eat. So he's like, "Hey, I've got some stuff back in the back for you. You can pick it out."
It's so gross.
And took her back there, and yep, she was not ready for what was, or he wasn't ready either for what was about to be done.
Yeah, well, Ricky saved the day at first.
Yes.
And then we cut to a scene where Artie was corn on the cob or something. Like, Artie was using the world's largest stock pot.
the largest.
He had to stand on a chair to reach the top of the stock pot.
Yes.
Of the pot. But of course it's boiling water, and I can only imagine it took like 4 hours to get that water to boil in the size of that pot. But he's up on a chair, and like somebody comes in behind him and like shakes the chair. Basically, he loses his balance, and then they pull the chair out from under him, and he pulls the pot of boiling water over on top of him. What did you think of the scene? As a person who's seen this many times, I know that you like the gore, and we really haven't seen anything yet. But I was curious, like, what was Courtney's reaction to
that hurt? Like, that hurt my body to watch that. So this is kind of like off on a whim, but when I was in school, I caught my bed on fire.
I didn't know this.
So I rolled over and burnt my hand. So I felt his pain there. He definitely had what was coming for him, and I thought for sure that was Ricky who had pushed him in.
Right.
I thought 100%. I was like, oh, this is easy to tell. Like, this is who it is.
Right.
But yeah, that was. I mean, the way that the burns and everything looked, I felt his pain on that.
Yeah.
But
it's just, I like they're just pulsating. Like those blisters were like, and this is something that you'll see a lot of, knowing that you're kind of a horror film puppy. That you'll see a lot of this when we get into like 70s and 80s horror. Before CGI took over, was a lot of these practical effects. Like, they couldn't do that on a computer, so they like laid that guy on an elevated table and had makeup on with these like sacks underneath the prosthetic skin, and then underneath there's guys with like bulbs that are like squeezing the bulbs, pushing the air into them, that are making them do that fluttering. So it's like a huge production to get that effect going, and it was really gross.
It was.
And so Artie doesn't die, though. He just has like really bad 3rd-degree burns from this, 88 gallons of boiling water dumped on his body. So he's out of the picture. I don't know what the kids are going to eat the rest of the summer, but that's not our decision.
No.
And so, what was the next scenario?
Kenny on the boat.
Oh, yeah. Or Kenny under the boat.
Under the boat.
And so, yeah, the boys they're trying to talk all the girls to go skinny dipping with them. And, of course, the girls don't want to do it because the boys are all perverse. And they're so perverse that the boys just go skinny dipping by themselves. That was not anything like my experience at summer camp. Probably not yours either. But the boys were determined to go skinny dipping, whether anyone was with them or not.
Yes.
And so it ends up, were they in a boat and the boat capsized? Anyway, like one of the boys ends up underneath like a capsized canoe. And then we see a head pop up out of the water. We see the back of the head, of course. And it is somebody under there. It's a girl. We now see it's a girl. Or at least someone in a wig, at least. And they're under there. And even he's kind of... You could tell he recognizes who it is.
Yeah, because he had said, like, oh, man, if the other boys knew you were out here.
Right. And so and then that's it. Like, he's a goner. We find him the next day, just water. I mean, another just cool practical effect, just real waterlogged, and just
a snake crawling out of his mouth.
Wasn't that awesome?
Yes, it was. I was not expecting that.
Oh, this is gonna be such a fun show. Not just this one, but all of them in general. Like, I'm so excited just to educate you on all that is horror. But so you're right. So the snake just comes crawling out of his mouth. And so he didn't even do anything to Angela.
No.
Other than just, probably made fun of her for not skinny dipping or whatever, but none of the girls did. But anyway, he's a goner. We've got other little things where, Angela, like one of the Judy is she's the villain of the movie.
She is.
Her
and Meg.
Yeah, Meg is her counselor.
Yes.
And that she's she's bad because she wears like a black muscle shirt and like a red scarf. So she just looks like she's, the bad girl. Meanwhile, I think it's important to remember while all this is going on, the camp director is so worried about the camp getting shut down that like all of these accidents and deaths, like he's keeping away from the police and keeping it all quiet. Because he doesn't want the kids to be sent home because they'll lose out on his pay.
Yes.
So yeah, Judy, at some point in the movie, she's really, really ripping on Angela because Angela won't go swimming. and she won't even shower with the other girls, you know. And then she starts calling her every name in the book. Meg comes in and starts jumping on board, and you know, did Angela? Who threw Angela in the water?
Meg did, because
Okay.
it was definitely one of those where I was like, wait, this is a camp counselor?
Yeah.
Like, carrying her.
Right.
And at that point, Mel, the director of the camp, he was like chewing on Ricky, and Ricky's trying to save her, but yeah, it was it was a feisty scene there.
Yeah, there was another scene where Angela comes out of the mess hall, and there's a group of male campers. They all look like they're in their early 30s.
Yes.
But they're all standing on top of the roof of the cabin next door, and they start like throwing stuff at her. Ricky's challenging them all to a fight. It's just not a good camp experience for Angela.
No.
We see, you know, like I said, we see, who else gets killed?
Who was the guy who got killed taking a poop?
Oh yeah,
those were his famous last words. I'm gonna take a mean dump.
Yeah, he was one of the guys on the roof. He was one of the guys throwing food.
He
at
threw the water balloon.
And so
at her.
yeah, he goes in. This was a pretty gnarly death too. He goes into he goes in because he's got to drop a load. He goes into the bathroom, and you can tell that they filmed this at a camp. Like,
yes,
you know, so they use the camp. So he goes in, sits down, he's doing his business, and then we see somebody come in and slide a broomstick through the doors of that and the adjoining toilet. So he's not going to be able to open the doors. And then the window over the toilet, somebody like knifes that open, and then like takes like a hornet's nest or a beehive or something on a stick, and like puts it in through the window, and then shakes it, and until like it falls off. So this guy's trapped in here, getting stung hundreds of times. It's sticking to the point it kills him.
Yeah, that scene of him where it came back on him, that was disgusting.
I know.
I loved it.
Good.
It was
good,
but it was disgusting.
Yeah, when that slow camera pan where like you see his hand, and then there's like you just see all the blisters and holes of the stings.
And they're like going in his ear.
Yeah, and they're just covering his head.
Yes.
And, yeah, that was pretty sweet. So far, I'm happy. I'm happy that you watched the movie and you were ready for it, and you're not in this first episode like, yeah, this will be our last episode because this isn't gonna work. And so yeah, she takes him out. She gets a boyfriend. You know, there's like a camp dance, and there's some boy that's just nice to her, and he's a very straight-laced kid. He seems like a nice, polite boy. You know, he's a little aggressive. He like forces a smooch on her, and then asks.
I had secondhand embarrassment for him.
Yeah, I did too. I was like, "Oh, buddy, that's probably why that's your first kiss, because that's the way you go about it." And then asks for a second one, and then takes one anyway.
Yeah,
I love how the music swells up like it's it's so goofy. And so like she's got a friend. She's, you know, it's not just Ricky. She's got this other friend. Judy's still being Judy. So Judy gets it. Oh, Judy really gets it.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, I don't even feel comfortable talking about it as a male the way Judy gets it.
She had it. She had it coming for her, and she got it.
Yeah, she was straightening her hair, so she had a hot hair straightener going, and then it was placed in an area that I don't think any human being, male or female, would want a hot hair straightener placed.
Yeah, no thank you.
Yeah, it was painful. That was the one that got me, because they didn't even show that. Like, there wasn't even aftermath of that one. It was like, we've gone so far on this one, we're going to let your imagination fill in the blanks. You
just imagine what happens here.
And so we got Meg. I don't remember, does Meg bite it? I don't remember. Did she get killed?
Yes, Meg had a date with the older camp director.
Oh, that's right.
Who is like the age of her grandpa.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it was gross.
Yeah, she gets sliced right down the back through the shower.
That's right. That's what, because like, as a reminder, I've watched 10 horror films this week.
They're all running together.
Yeah, so while they've all been different enough, this was 11 movies ago for me. So it's probably like the most recent one you've watched. But
oh, yes.
I've watched 10 other ones in the meantime. So yeah, Meg gets it. So basically it's just a killing spree. We've got a murderer at camp. There's no surprise there. We've got somebody that is, attacking the people who are going after Angela. And in every instance, this is supposed to lead us to believe, like you were led to believe, this is Ricky.
Yeah.
Ricky's doing all this.
I mean, he's a hothead. He's that kid in school that is always in trouble, but they're trying to do the right thing, just not the right way.
Right. And I think that's perfectly stated, that you respect the kid because his heart's in the right place.
Yes.
But like you said, his means of comeuppance and revenge are not necessarily it.
No.
And so that's who we're led to believe. Plus, there's been a few times where we've seen hands, like the killer's hands, and they're very masculine hands.
Yes, they are. Because that's when the killer was washing the blood off of the knife in the shower scene. I was like, oh yeah, that's a man's hands.
That's a dude.
Yes.
That's a dude. So, end of the movie rolls along, and Angela and her boy go off on a walk. I mean, at this point, all the bad people are dropping like flies.
Yeah.
So there's really no threat to Angela anymore.
No.
So she and her boy go on a walk, and then, they're looking for them, and they come across them. They're out by the lake or, whatever. They're out, by the water, and we see Angela from the backside sitting there, and you can tell that she's, got something in her lap. And as they come up, what do they find?
Well, a head.
Yeah.
I mean, just cut straight to it. Also, when she turned around, I was not expecting.
Yeah, when she stood up. Yeah.
Not expecting that at all.
Expecting what? Some people.
I would say that a dude.
Yeah, yeah. This is not Angela. The survivor from the boat accident at the beginning of the movie was the brother.
Yes.
It was not the girl.
Nope.
We were led to believe this the whole movie because we've seen Angela. And so the survivor was the little boy. Dad died. He was gay. He had a gay lover. And we find out, which it didn't really surprise me when you saw those two at the beginning of the movie anyway.
Yes.
But in 1983, it probably was surprising.
Yes.
Because everything was still very closeted then. So, yeah, the brother survived the boat accident. And when moved in with Aunt, as we established, Aunt's kind of cuckoo.
Yes, she is.
And she always wanted a daughter. So she raised this little boy as a girl, Angela, and is basically just almost like reverse conversion therapy. Converted this little boy into being a transgender.
Yeah. I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah,
I mean,
to be quite honest, that's one of the. I picked this movie as our first one because one, there's a lot of kids, so we could talk the education, and two, I knew that this is a shock ending that you hadn't experienced yet, and so I was like, I'm gonna throw that at Courtney and see what happens.
Haven't experienced it in a movie yet.
In a movie, that is correct. You haven't experienced that in film form yet.
Yeah, I was. That was something, and then my brain was racking. I was like, wait, how? And when it flashed to the aunt, and she's like, you'll be such a good little girl, Angela. I mean, Peter.
Right.
And I was like, oh,
and
okay.
And then, it's after the reveal, there was a lot of stuff early on that Aunt said, don't tell people how you got your physical. And
yes.
It's oh. So all of these weird things that we just chalked up to her being weird actually had a basis to it.
They did.
And that's kind of how the movie ended, was just this kind of pullback scene of Angela standing there with just really grisly, monstrous looking face. Not just weird look on her face, and then exposed, fully exposed.
Fully.
And then we cut to the credits, and that was 1983 Sleepaway Camp.
And that, I was just like, oh, it was a very easy watch. I did enjoy it.
Good.
And it was a good one for somebody who might not be too into scary movies, because there were a lot of funny scenes, I thought.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're
the little pranks and things.
Yeah. I think this qualifies as horror because it's gory.
Yes.
And because there's slashers or whatever, but there's not one scary moment in this movie. You're not on the edge of your seat in suspense at all. It's corny, it's campy. You could tell that every actor in this movie was just giving it their best. Like nobody rose to prominence after this film. It's not like a young Leonardo DiCaprio was in this movie. And
I even actually got on IMDb. Mm-hmm. And as the credits were going, I paused it and I just Googled some of them, and I was like, oh, they are only known for Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah. Like,
okay.
this was somebody had some money and got some people together, and then it was like, okay, thanks, guys. And then they all went back to do what they were doing.
Yep. See you never. Like,
yeah.
That was that.
So this was like the summer camp of their career. Like, I'm going to go there for a little bit of time, and then when it's over, I'm never going to talk or think about it again. I'm just going to do my thing. There have been two sequels that I know of from this movie. It's got a big cult following. I always wonder if people understand like what qualifies a movie as like a cult film.
That I do not know.
I've always defined it to people as there are certain movies that a lot of people have seen a few times.
Okay.
A cult movie is flipped. It's a movie that fewer people have seen a lot of times.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
it does.
when you think of like what a cult is, it's a following of, we don't care what anybody else thinks. This is what we want, and that's how cult movies really. In my definition, that's kind of how they come about. Is the people that like this movie, like they love, like they've seen it multiple times.
This is their movie.
Yeah, and it's not my favorite movie by any means, but I have seen this movie multiple occasions.
A lot of times.
Yeah, because it's so great. It's so like, it's just so like, it's somehow like effective and poorly made at the same time. Like nothing should work. The acting is way overboard. The music swells at weird times. The gore is great. But,
yes, it is.
But at the end of it, it's like, this shouldn't work, but for some reason, doggone it, like, you just like it.
It did. It worked.
It's like the ugly puppy in a litter. You're like, well, he's still cute.
It's so ugly, it's cute.
Yeah.
Like, it's just corny that it's good.
It is. It definitely is. So, I think as teachers, we should grade this movie. Okay. Before we get to the grade, do you have anything that you wanted to add that we didn't cover already?
No, I can't think of anything. The only other thing I had written down was when Mel found out who the killer was.
Oh, right.
And so when Angela threw that arrow through his neck.
Oh, I forgot about that
I was impressed with how smooth that was. Like, it just went floop through. I was very impressed with that, just how smooth it was. And it's one of those that it's almost like, it's kind of that, like we've said, like that's cheesy of how, that's not real life, but it's also 1983.
Like nothing stopped that arrow before it went all the way through?
Exactly. Nothing. No air movement, no nothing.
Nope, just jelly-necked, like there's no vertebra in there, no muscles, no tendons, it's just a straight shot. That's the world's sharpest arrow that Angela fired off there. And we know that she could draw that bow back, because she's got man strength. So.
She is strong.
She could stab through a shower wall.
Some of those things I was just like...
She's deceivingly strong, that one.
She is.
And so, I'm curious, what's your report card grade for this movie?
Okay, so my report card grade, I wanted to give it an A, but I'm giving it a B+. And it's earning a B+ because it kept me involved. Mm-hmm. I really liked it. The gore was great. And I will be watching the rest of the Sleepaway Camps for sure. Just
Oh, that's good to hear.
it just didn't get an A because it didn't overall. I mean, I wasn't jumping or anything, which
Right.
is totally fine with me. It's something to
Right.
ease into. But yeah, it's got a B+ for me.
I know that I will get Sleepaway Camp 3. I have Sleepaway Camp 2 on the server.
Okay.
So you can scratch that itch. My report card grade for this one is a B.
Okay.
And it's you'll find as we work our way through here that I will fully declare that I can be movie snobbish, and it's really weird though, because a movie snob would not enjoy a movie like this at all. Like and so it is strange. I have a difficult time giving things like a perfect score.
Yes.
And a lot of it's because I've seen so much that I constantly am like mentally comparing. So to be like, I have seen so many better horror films than this, with even equal, if not better gore, better music, better acting, scary, like I've seen so many more that are better that I don't feel like, how you kind of feel, you feel bad that the kid who gets an A+ and the kid who gets an A-, they have the same GPA, like that kind of thing.
Yes.
And so it's like, I give this a solid B because it's better than most. It has no reason to be better, but just pure work ethic. Like, you could tell these people were there to make a scary movie, and they weren't going to let anything stand in their way.
No.
And there's something about cult status, so it's got a B for me, a solid B. A nice solid 85 or something like that. But yeah, but I'm glad that you gave it a B+. I will admit there was a part that like all week long I was on the fence because I'm like, I know you haven't seen much, and I'm dropping you into something that it's like it's an acquired taste of sorts. Like, is this the kind that Courtney's gonna like? Because we talked a little bit about the stuff like you have seen, and I'm like, this is a big left field curveball here.
It was.
Okay, so these kids, how do you? They're in your class. What do you do? Like, these kids come back to the ones that survived. Well, that these kids acted the same way before they went to camp. Like, Judy was not a saint in school.
No.
So, like, what do you do with these kids? What do we do with them?
My number one thing is, this is why I don't teach high school kids.
Yeah.
Like, I've said it before. I mean, I don't know how people teach older kids. Their attitudes, the chaos, I wouldn't be able to handle that at all.
Yeah.
Seeing that, I was just like, oh my goodness, where are the adults here?
Right. Yeah, it's tough. And it's tough because there comes a point where I think we rely on the adults to step in and set an example. But even with that being said, they have developed enough of their personality that they're still influenced, but they're choosing who they're influenced by.
Yes.
And that's tough because, I mean, I had an instance today. I had a class of 9 kids, and we started a project in class yesterday, and we were working on it today, and I went around just to check where people were, and I had 2 of the 9 that had done nothing all day yesterday, and then part of today. And one student I come around, and she was watching the Jeffrey Dahmer Netflix documentary in class.
I mean, it's a good watch. Have you watched it?
I've heard it's good. No, I haven't. I've heard it's good. But for me, it's like this,
yes.
And so it's just that kind of like, how do you restart this? Like when they're already down this behavioral path, and they're so close to the cusp of being free out into the world. Like, how do you wrangle them back in?
And that's, I mean, again, I think that this is probably the hardest part of the talking for me, just because all of these kids are so old.
Oh yeah, and we'll definitely cover more where there's little kids. And
because I'd be like, all right, friends, let's come on over. Who can do? We always have who can do it the quietest. Yeah. And you're like, I can't.
You try that, these kids are going to treat you like they treated Angela.
Yes, yeah, I'll be gone. Nope, I'll be a goner.
They're throwing stuff at you from the rooftops and throwing you in the lake, and yeah.
And I'm just like, friends, that's not a good choice.
Right.
Like,
yeah, and I have. And you do a great job with your classroom. I've seen that too. Like, you, especially the kindergarten level, you're working on those social cues and you're working on behavioral things. And you just hope and pray that they take them with them when they leave your classroom.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and teaching high school, it is tough because you really try to build the connections with the kids so that they respect you as a person enough that they don't disrespect what you're trying to do.
Yes, and that's something that I have. I mean, it is a respect thing, especially with them, because it's like, I don't want to say your friend, but I want you to feel comfortable to talk to me about things, but it's also like, you need to be a little scared of me, listen to me.
Right.
Respect me on that level.
Yeah. And I'm in a different situation because the vast majority of my students this year I also had in 6th grade. So like we got that early formality out of the way, and they, even though they're several years removed from the 6th grade, they still have a little history of my expectations. And so that's a little different. They remember, hey, this guy was all right. But it's tough. I don't know, like, even Ricky, as great a kid as he is, he's running his mouth all day long.
Yes, yeah, he has, I said, he's always in trouble.
Yeah, he's the kid that you're constantly saying, like, just ignore him.
Yes.
Just ignore him.
Just move along, go find someone else to play with, like.
Oh, and then there's Judy. Oh. Let's put it this way. It doesn't surprise me at all that Judy wears pink.
No.
Yeah, because Judy is a mean girl.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, she's the Regina George of Camp Arawak.
She is 100% the Regina, yes.
Yeah, only without the ability to, like, manipulate. She's just straight bulldozer mean. Like, she
has no cares. Like, she doesn't even care that, Regina wants the adults to think she's nice, but Judy just doesn't care.
Yeah.
She's
Needless
heartless.
to say, if all these kids came back to our district after the summer, as tragic as it would be, don't get me wrong, you've lost students. That's never a good time. Fortunately, I've never lost a student.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, but I can only imagine how traumatic that would be. But it would definitely be a different school year, knowing it's like, well, Judy's not a problem anymore. I wouldn't be proud of that because, you don't want to see that. But at the same time, like, it's like when that bad kid moves away before he gets to you, and you're like, oh, I wish him well, but he's not here to disrupt things. So I wouldn't wish being murdered at summer camp on any kid. But I bet Angela doesn't go to the same school next year. And kudos to the movie for being like 40 years ahead in the whole like transgender identity, like.
I mean, she, looking in her eyes as many times as we did in that movie, girl, all the way.
Oh, she's a girl all the way.
Yes.
Felicia Rose is the actress that played her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
they like superimposed her face over a boy and put a wig on.
Which is why I think she looked so grisly. That was probably the cheesiest part of the movie.
Yeah.
I was just like, what the heck?
Well, one thing to remember too, and you knowing how much older I am than you are, one thing you got to remember is back in 1983, things weren't clear.
Yeah.
Like your video, the best video quality you had was VHS. And so when you're watching this at VHS, you couldn't tell that was like a mask on a kid's face. It looked like, oh my gosh, that girl's a boy. But now, of course, we're watching it in like the high definition transfer.
Yes.
And so it does, you got to go in a little bit with like, okay, this movie was not made today. I have to give it a little bit of liberty. They didn't make this thinking 40 years ago, people are going to be onto us. Like,
yes.
So, all right. Well, anything you wanted to add based on the education? Again, these kids being older, they weren't really, in your wheelhouse, but.
Not that I can think of. This just 100% confirms that I could not teach older kids.
But does it also confirm that you're open to all things horror?
Yes.
Okay, good. Good. That's exciting.
Yes.
So, what do you want to watch next week? Is there anything? I mean, do we just want to pull a random one again, or is there something that you kind of always heard about, wanted to watch, and never had a chance?
Honestly, something that I have always heard about, never seen, and now I have the chance to do it. Either Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street, especially with Halloween coming up,
right?
You know, getting in the groove of things. I mean, it's. I feel like it's probably going to be a total opposite.
Oh yeah.
Of what we just watched.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's same kind of. Halloween was before. Halloween was 1978, and Nightmare on Elm Street was 85. So you're kind of we're like sandwiched right between them. But both of those movies were made by like horror masters.
Yeah.
Like John Carpenter directed Halloween. John Carpenter's had just like an amazing horror career. He had, he had a movie called The Fog. He had a movie called The Thing, which many people think is the greatest horror movie ever made. He's got a movie called Christine that's based on a Stephen King novel. Like John Carpenter has been around. Like he's earned his cred. On the flip side, you've got Wes Craven, who directed Nightmare on Elm Street. He also directed all like the first 4 Scream movies.
I've seen like parts of one of them.
Right, but so it's like Wes Craven again has, and I'm not going to go, because I could go into a bunch of other movies you've probably never even heard of, but Wes Craven's another one that is like legit, like, Last House on the Left was actually one of the first movies my wife and I saw together. It's grisly. It's a very rough movie. But I'm excited. Why don't we do this? Because we're in October.
Okay.
And Halloween's coming up. Why don't we hit Nightmare on Elm Street next?
Okay.
And push Halloween to closer to Halloween.
Closer to Halloween. Sounds good to me.
All right. So, next week we will cover the original. Oh, I'm so excited because you've never seen this movie. This is. I could give a prerequisite grade on this one, but I'm not. But this was one of my favorites. This is a teacher's pet film for me.
This is the one where I just think I've seen like a flash of it. Comes up through the bed.
This is like a dream come true. The fact that you're like, Freddy is who? And Nightmare on Elm Street is, yes, it stars a very young Johnny Depp. I think it's his film debut. And when you think of the one
already.
Yeah, so it's a very hunky Johnny Depp. If the story serves me right, Johnny Depp went with a friend to the audition of this movie. He had no intention of auditioning, but he went with a friend, and then they went ahead and asked Johnny Depp to audition because he was there, and then he ends up getting the role, and now he's Johnny Depp. Like,
wow. I wonder how that friend feels about that.
Who knows? I don't even. I could probably figure out who it was, but yeah. So yeah, let's do that. Let's watch.
Okay.
Let's watch the original Nightmare on Elm Street next week. And keep in mind, there's like a bazillion sequels to this movie. So when you're watching the first one and you're like, oh, I'm definitely going to watch the remaining Sleepaway Camps. These are rabbit holes, really.
Okay.
Like Nightmare on Elm Street, and you were like, oh my gosh, this is great. I could watch 7 more of these. Absolutely. Same with Halloween. Oh my god, Halloween was so good. I could watch like 8 more. Well, guess what? There's 8 or 9 more. So there's actually another one coming out.
I was just going to say.
There's another one coming out on the 14th. It is let's see, you've got the original Halloween from John Carpenter. This movie that they've come out with, Halloween from, I don't know, like 2018 or something like that, is like the unofficial like sequel to the original. Okay. It's weird how they branched off, because there's Halloween and Halloween 2. Halloween 3 has nothing to do with Halloween 1 and 2. And then Halloween 4 and 5 kind of, and then there's 6, and then there's Rob Zombie made a couple of them that suck. And then they're like, hey, let's pretend everything after part 1 didn't happen, and then we'll just make a sequel called Halloween. It's kind of a relaunch. And then they made Halloween Kills, and then what's coming out in a couple weeks is Halloween Ends. So it's this weird, like, it's not really part 4, but it's kind of part 4. And and so I'm excited to see that one as well. But I think definitely Nightmare on Elm Street, that excites me. So we'll watch Nightmare on Elm Street for next week.
Okay.
So, well, thanks for hanging out with us, listeners or viewers, if you're still here. We are, this, again, our debut episode of Deducation. You got a little horror talk. You got a little education talk. Full disclaimer, Nightmare on Elm Street is another one where they're all high school-aged kids. I would put Sleepaway Camp probably more like 8th grade, freshman year. Like, these are still young kids. Mm-hmm. Whereas Nightmare on Elm Street is definitely more, you're looking at, like, seniors.
Okay.
Like, my boyfriend's staying over at my house because my parents are gone.
Okay.
So that's the level we're looking at. But, boy, I am excited because the gore is just as good, but it's just a better movie. Like, top to bottom, better movie.
I'm excited.
Even the score of the movie, the music of this movie, listening to it in the car, it still creeps me out. So I'm excited for you to watch Nightmare on Elm Street.
One time we did a haunted trail or whatever, and I played the girl. This, again, I've never seen it, but I was a little girl and I was like singing the 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. So, I'm excited to see where that came from because I have no clue.
It shows up for sure. So, thanks for checking out our debut episode. You guys could find us on social media. There'll be links below. You can find us on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. If you're catching this on YouTube, we do have a podcast. If you're catching this on a podcast, we're on YouTube. So you can see, what we're talking about. We'll sprinkle a little fun little edits and stuff in there. And the YouTube as well. But otherwise, was it as bad as you thought?
No, it wasn't. But, I mean, I'm not as nervous now as I was as we started.
Good. And like I told you, the further we go, you get your feet wet.
Yes.
And then this turns into excitement because, again, like, my kids are young. My kids are too young to expose them to all of this. So in some ways, it's like, you're doing that for me. Because it's like, all of my friends that are my age, like, we all grew up with these movies. We've all seen them already.
Yep.
And I can't, as an educator, like, I can't really recommend all of these rated R movies for my students to go watch because it's like I'm supposed to be an educational leader. I'm not supposed to so it is fun to talk about the things that I really enjoy outside of education with somebody that I value and trust as an educator as well. Mm-hmm. So come back next week, everybody, as Courtney is going to watch Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time ever. And we will, again, review it. We will grade it. We will talk about how we would handle being educators in that community. And if you've got any comments or suggestions, if you've got any movies that you would love to see us cover, comment wherever you're at, whether Twitter or Instagram or whatever. Drop a comment, and let us know. We'd love. We're just looking for guidance. So
because more than likely I have not seen it.
Yeah, and more than likely I have. Actually, unless it's fairly recent. If it's kind of a recent, like, I won't call it big budget, but like you mentioned, you've seen Annabelle, and I have not. I've not seen Annabelle. Like a lot of the newer stuff that just seems to be made because it's cheap and we can pump it out there and throw a PG-13 rating on it so junior high kids go see it. Like that stuff to me is like, oh, well then you're cutting corners. Like you're just going for jump scares because you can't show the grisly gore that we just watched in Sleepaway Camp in a PG-13 movie.
No, not at all.
And so I like the R stuff. And so this has been fun. I'm glad that you are on board. Episode 1 is in the books. Again, catch us on social media and join us next week as we uncover the classic on Nightmare on Elm Street. So for Deducation, I'm Mike.
And I'm Courtney.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.